Now let's discuss how Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became the Caliph, and to do that we have to talk about a man named Raja ibn Haywa. The primary architect of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's rise to power was Raja ibn Haywa. Raja ibn Haywa was an Islamic scholar and an advisor to the Umayyad dynasty. He was born around 660 CE during the first fitna. To give you some context, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan became Caliph in 661 CE, the year after Raja ibn Haywa was born. So this means that Raja ibn Haywa was 15 years older than Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, who was born in the year 675 CE. Raja ibn Haywa also supervised the construction of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and he was involved in many other construction projects at Al-Aqsa. Raja ibn Haywa was also an advisor to Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik before he became the Caliph, when he was just the governor of Palestine. But he continued in that role as one of Sulaiman's advisors once Sulaiman became the Caliph. I'm going to read a fairly long passage from Tariq al-Tabari. Just be patient, but if you listen to this, inshallah, I think it will really highlight some interesting conversations that leads to understanding how Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became the Caliph. Now this quote is actually coming from Raja ibn Haywa himself, though it is narrated in Tariq al-Tabari. On Friday, Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik put on green robes made of silk and looked in the mirror, saying, "By God, I am a king in the prime of his manhood." Then he went out to lead the people in the Friday prayers. Upon his return, however, he fell ill. When his condition deteriorated, he entrusted the succession, in a document he wrote himself, to one of his sons, a youth who had not yet attained puberty. I said to him, "What are you doing, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? One of the things that preserves a caliph in his grave is the appointment of an upright man to serve as his successor over the Muslims." Sulaiman replied, "I will ask God for guidance, and I will consider the matter, for I have not yet made up my mind." Sulaiman tarried a day or two and then tore up the document. He called for me and asked, "What is your opinion of Dawood ibn Sulaiman?" I replied, "He is away in Constantinople, and you do not know whether he is dead or alive." He asked me, "Whom would you propose then?" I replied, "The decision is yours, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen." I wanted to see whom he would mention. He asked, "What is your opinion of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz?" I replied, "By God, I know him to be a worthy, excellent man and a sincere Muslim." He said, "By God, he is exactly as you describe him." Then he said, "But if, by God, I appoint him and do not appoint anyone else, there will surely be civil strife, for Banu Abdul Malik will never allow him to rule over them unless one of them is put next in succession." Now Yazid ibn Abdul Malik was away at that moment on the pilgrimage. Sulaiman said, "Therefore, I will appoint Yazid ibn Abdul Malik to be Caliph after him. That should placate them, and they will accept him." I said, "The decision is yours." So after this conversation between Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik and Raja ibn Haywa, Sulaiman went on ahead and wrote the letter that appointed Umar ibn Abdul Aziz as his successor. He then ordered Raja ibn Haywa to take that letter and make the other members of Banu Umayyad give Umar ibn Abdul Aziz the bay'ah. But Raja did something slightly different. He did gather the available members of Banu Umayyad, and then he stated that Sulaiman had ordered them to give bay'ah to whoever was in the letter. The people, of course, refused to do so until they know who was actually in the letter. Well, Raja went back to Sulaiman and explained the situation. Sulaiman then told him to take his personal guard and try again. He gave Raja permission to behead anyone who refused to give the bay'ah. And the bay'ah, if you're not familiar with that term, is the pledge of allegiance to a leader. So Raja went back and gathered the members of Banu Umayyad again, and this time, backed by Sulaiman's guards, no one refused. Now, there is some dispute, there is some disagreement if this letter was actually written by Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, or if Raja may have forged the whole thing. After all, no one else witnessed this conversation between Raja and Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik except for Raja himself. So there is some speculation that perhaps Raja may have forged this document. And as a pious Islamic scholar, he likely wanted to ensure that a pious caliph succeeded Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, and perhaps he figured this was an equal trade-off. Who knows? Allah knows best. Anyway, on his way back to see Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, Raja ibn Haywa ran into two members from Banu Umayyad. The first was Sulaiman's half-brother, Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik and Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, they shared the same father, but they had different mothers. Hisham was hoping to succeed Sulaiman, and he was afraid that he had not been chosen as the next caliph. So he tried to cajole, he tried to persuade Raja ibn Haywa into revealing whose name was on the paper, but Raja refused. He refused, stating that he'd been ordered against it by the Caliph. Well, the next person the Raja ran into was none other than Umar ibn Abdul Aziz himself. Now, Umar had the exact opposite fear that Hisham ibn Abdul Malik had. Umar was afraid that he had been chosen as the next caliph, and he also tried to persuade Raja to reveal whose name was on that paper, but once again, Raja refused, telling Umar the same thing that he had told Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Raja returned to Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, who was laying in bed and seemed to be near death. Raja tried to turn him towards the Qibla, towards the direction of Mecca, but Sulaiman stopped him. He said that it was not time for that just yet. Raja tried again a little bit later, and once again, Sulaiman stopped him. After some time passed, Raja tried a third time to position Sulaiman towards the Qibla, and this time, Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik did not resist. Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik began reciting the kalima, that is, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, as Raja ibn Haywa turned him towards the Qibla. And Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik died a few moments later. With the Caliph dead, with Sulaiman dead, Raja ibn Haywa headed out the room and he ran into Sulaiman's wife. She didn't know that he was dead yet, so she asked Raja how the Caliph was doing. Raja replied that he was sleeping, and Sulaiman's wife accepted that. Then Raja ordered a guard in front of the door and gave that guard orders not to let anyone in. He wanted to keep the Caliph's death a secret for the time being. Raja then went and again called the members of Banu Umayyad, and they gathered at the masjid in Dabik. With the members of Banu Umayyad gathered in the masjid, Raja ibn Haywa commanded them to make bay'ah yet again to whomever was listed on that letter from Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik. Well, the members of Banu Umayyad complained and repeated that they had already done this, but Raja insisted, and they finally did so. Once they had given a second bay'ah, Raja then said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Certainly from Allah we come, and to Him is our return. And then he informed them that Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik had returned to Allah. Then he opened the paper with the document and read it, stating that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was to succeed Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik. Once he finished reading, he ordered them to stand up out of respect for the new Caliph. Well, not surprisingly, everybody was stunned because no one expected it to be Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik was furious. He finally yelled out that they would never give him bay'ah, even though they had technically done so twice already. Raja then swore that he would then have his head cut off if he refused to do so. Well, Hisham ibn Abdul Malik cooled down after that, and he reluctantly stood up for Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz himself was also stunned and speechless. Raja had to grab him by the arm and guide him to his seat at the pulpit. That's how surprised Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was. Meanwhile, Hisham was mumbling, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, over and over and over again. But he wasn't saying this for his brother. He was saying this because he had been passed over as the Caliph. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz himself was also saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And he also was not saying it for his brother, but he was also saying it for the exact opposite reason that Hisham was saying it. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was saying this because the thing that he hated the most had come to him. He did not want leadership. He did not want to be the Caliph. Well, Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik's body was washed and shrouded, and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz led the janazah prayer, that is the funeral prayer. After the funeral and the burial, some of the royal horses or the caliphal horses were brought to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And it was a wide variety of fine horses, mules, all sorts of riding animals and their grooms. But Umar was confused. He wasn't sure what was going on. He was like, what is all this about? And they told him that this was the Caliph's stable and that he could choose whichever horse, whichever mount he wanted. Well, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz replied that the horse he already had, the horse he already owned, was good enough, and he sent the other animals back. Now, this may seem like not a big deal for someone to say, I don't want these horses, but think about it. Compare this to how you would react if someone offered you one of many luxury cars. A horse back then was more valuable to them than a car is to us today. So just think about how you would feel if someone offered you all of these luxury cars, Mercedes, Cadillacs, Benzes, Teslas, whatever your preference is, someone offered you your pick of any of these luxury cars. That's how it was for Umar ibn Abdul Aziz to say, no, I don't want those luxury cars. I'm happy with my Toyota Camry.